Everyone, and welcome to Full-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me this week are Drew. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, my friend. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. And Mozza, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, getting by, thanks.
Yeah. Now, Drew, obviously you missed the Villa review after the weekend's game
I wish I'd missed the
on
game.
Monday. Well, unfortunately, we know you didn't miss the game. You were stood 2 seats away from me, so I know you were there, and I know you weren't
Yeah.
enjoying it. But we're not going to hash it up too much because we moaned quite a lot about it on Monday's review. We have got a big game coming up this weekend. Obviously, uh, you can't even say it's a must-win in terms of wanting to get Europe now. It's quite frankly a have to win if we want to get Europe. Anything other than a win on Saturday is that slim chance of Europe basically gone. Not that I'm even looking at Europe now, if I'm being honest. Um, we moaned an awful lot on Monday about the squad and some of the players that are picked and some of the players that haven't been picked. For you, Drew, going into the game on Saturday, what do you want to see squad wise in terms of players coming in, players coming out? What should Marco do to sort of shake it up a little bit? Because it's clearly something's needed to change in the emphasis of what's going on within that squad.
I still maintain while Marco's got a mathematical shot of getting Fulham into Europe, he's going to go with tried and trusted. Problem is, the tried and trusted, they're dropping like flies. We've got no Muniz now to the end of the season. Reece Nelson's long since departed. We've now, Castagna's now come out and had surgery, bless him, because he's been playing injured. You do wonder how fit Robinson is and whether he's going to be able to sustain it over the final few games. What do I want to see? I would just like to see some rotation because too many of our players are just running on fumes. It's nice that Callum Osman's been promoted to the first team squad. Is he going to start? Is he hell? But it would be great to see him on the field for more than 5 minutes. Josh King, obviously, he seems to be involved in a bit of a Mexican standoff with the club at the moment about his contract. Ryan Sessegnon's recently just come out in the press and basically told him that, Marco's the best thing since sliced bread and King is at the best club for him. But what I'd like to see is wholesale changes. I really would. But we're not going to see him. We're not going to see him at all. I mean, we're going to be starting with the same team, more or less, that we had at Villa, I would have guessed. And this is where it gets difficult because the end of the season is becoming a real grind. It's becoming a real grind now, and even a save for the most optimistic Fulham fans, we all see the problems, and this is against a backdrop of speculation regarding Silva's future again. So, I think personally, the only way to reinvigorate the fans is to play some of the kids because it will pique the fans' interest again, and it will naturally force the fans to get behind the team because they'll want to support the kids. But that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. We're going to be playing as we were.
Yeah, I think there's been a real frustration among the fan base in recent weeks, especially around the fact that quite a lot of these games where we've really struggled to end them right. So if you excuse the Southampton game and obviously the Liverpool one, you can understand what happened. It didn't happen, but we've got players on that pitch that are clearly struggling injury-wise, struggling fitness-wise. Alex Iwobi is probably the clearest example of this, and we spoke about him a lot on Monday, that we're talking about a player here that has played more football for Fulham this season than he has done in any other season he's ever played football. And arguably, yes, he did play a full season mainly a full season for Fulham last year. It wasn't to the intensity that he started this season at. Alex Iwobi has had an outstanding season this year. Unfortunately for him, he just hasn't had the legs to keep up the work rate that he had. And that's sort of understandable. We're really starting to see where Marco Silva's want for a small squad is starting to bite us in the bum a little bit. You look at Castagna now being out and Muniz, as you say, Drew, you look at the fact that we had Wilson out for 3 months. We had we had Harrison Reed out for 2 months, and now he's probably not going to see him again for the rest of the season after Saturday's sort of injury. We've had little niggly injuries there. Reece Nelson being down and out after a good start for him really hasn't helped. Every team in this league has had injury problems, but not every team in this league has a squad that doesn't even fulfill the 23 player rota that you can fulfill. And it's a bit of a concern to me that that hasn't been addressed, and it wasn't addressed in January. We all know that we were crying out for them to sign players in January to fill up some of these squad spaces where we knew there was little injuries and little problems, and we just didn't do it. And the only sort of player we brought in was 36-year-old Willian, and it's frustrating to see that even he's not really got the minutes that maybe I'd expected from him after coming in, whether that be his age finally catching up with him, whether that just be because Marco hasn't wanted to change that squad up. I don't know. Drew, as obviously just said about the youth players coming in and being in that squad, we've been crying out for it for ages, haven't we? I think everyone has. I think it's one of those things that if you listen to multiple Fulham podcasts and outlets, everyone's been saying the exact same thing for months about the want and the need for some youth on there. Saturday was one of those games where it was prime that having a little bit of youth, a little bit of exuberance on that bench to maybe come on and just put a little bit of energy, a little bit of emphasis into what we were trying to do might have really helped. Instead, what we got was Emma Smith-Rowe coming on and sort of reverting back to what he was before that Southampton game, where he's come on, he's basically played hide and seek the whole time he's on the pitch and not really wanting to commit going forward, and that was frustrating. The subs on Saturday really didn't make much sense at all. The only one that sort of came on and made any difference was Adama Traore coming on, who sort of attempted to make a lot of room going forward, but the problem with that was the person who was winning the ball on the halfway line to get him to break free was the player that he should be looking for in the box, who just then couldn't keep up with him. So, some youth on the pitch probably would have helped in that situation because they would have been happily, running the headless chicken to try and get in that box. But it is what it is. Jack, going into Saturday, Southampton are a slightly different prospect, especially playing at home. It's a game where we're probably gonna be needing to take the game to them. It's not they're not going to really look to play expansive football because it's David Moyes and it's Everton and they don't. What do you want to see on Saturday? What sort of reaction? We talk about reactions quite a lot on this show, especially after bad performances. But what sort of reaction do you want to see from the squad mainly after Saturday's performance?
A reaction, hopefully a positive one. It's what we wanted at the Villa game, and however many other games we've said it in our previous shows, and not even on our previous shows, what every Fulham fan must be thinking after we've had a crap result or a crap game beforehand, and they are becoming more and more. I want a reaction. We want to see some fight. I'm sorry, I'm a bit lost for words because I don't want to keep repeating myself or repeating ourselves like we seem to be doing. I don't really know what our game plan is, but I am resigned to the same feeling that, or the same opinion that Drew has been saying at the start, that it's going to be exactly the same. So I'm hoping for the best, expecting the worst. When we've been talking about the squad here as well, it's slim pickings, and honestly, I don't think actually excited about who we've seen, because I don't think we're going to see the likes of Marshall Goddo on the bench. Like, I don't know why he hasn't been about for a while. Ash, you mentioned Willian. I mean, this is probably going to be his last few games for us anyway. I think he needs to be starting. I hope that we just have a bit of explosiveness about us and a bit of firepower. Just come out guns blazing, really. But as always, depends what our starting 11 is going to be. Do we want Pereira starting? Do we want ESR starting? I want Harry Wilson starting. I want Sessegnon starting, so I can hope for those. But then, these 60 or 70 odd minute subs are going to come. and you can't even call players like ESR and Willian impact subs, because I don't really think they are. So as far as I'm concerned, the starting 11 is going to pretty much set the story for what the outcome is. The other thing I just want to say is I don't really know too much about what Everton's game plan would be. I don't know if Moyes is going to stay there. I don't know if he's going to be hanging on to next season, but he's done the job that he was brought in for, to save them from relegation. So they're safe. They'll be in the Premier League next season, as we will be too. So I kind of feel like Everton might be a bit more relaxed, but I can see them sneaking away with a result, just because I feel like there's less pressure on them than there is Fulham at the moment. And I won't be upset if we don't get a European place. Do we deserve it? That's another question. Maybe it is still possible, but yeah, I'm just lost for words, really.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. I think it's absolutely fair. And I asked Drew this because we spoke about it briefly on Monday. I want to get Drew's sort of feeling on it too. Do you feel like that I do, Drew, where this end of season burnout with the team is sort of crossing over into the fans as well? Because I sort of got this really weird feeling at the moment where I almost wish the season was already over. I really don't. I'm really struggling to get the energy to get excited about the 3 games left, and we should be really excited about the fact that we are still potentially going to get Europe. But I just feel so unexcited and unenthralled by the thought of watching, Fulham play football again on Saturday, that it's almost like become a bit of a chore. It feels like, this season has become a chore at the end of it. And I don't know if it's just because the football over the last couple of weeks has been really lackluster, or it's just because, this constant will they, won't they, can we, can't we, Europe's on, Europe's not on, I'm going to renew my passport, oh, fuck it, I'm not paying the 96 quid to do it. It's one of those things where it's just like, I feel like we've been repeating ourselves on rinse and repeat every week since January, and I've had enough of it. And I don't know how you feel about it, but we did say that on Monday I was getting a bit frustrated by it.
There's a lot to unpack there, Ash, because some of the things you touch upon are recurrent themes throughout the season, which no doubt when we do the season review show, we will be talking about. But I think the players are even starting to wonder now, because they've lost 4 of their last 6 games. And there's been a lot of nothingness in those performances. Just like one damp squib after another. I mean, talking about Europe, even if we win on Saturday, we've got to go to Brentford, who are now above us in the league and have mathematically a better shot of Europe than we do. They seem to have a squad that's got less injuries than us, and they seem to have more energy than us. Anyone expecting us to go to the G-Tech and win if we need to? I can't see it.
No.
I can't see it. Because games like that, they're about desire, they're about commitment, they're about hustle. Yeah? We haven't had that for, I'd like to say weeks, but it might be going on for months. We've shown it in flashes. I mean, first half against Chelsea was great. We blew away Liverpool. But have we really put it together for a whole game? When was the last game we put it together for? Whole game. I can't remember. And like I say, as the prospect of Europe seems to be slipping away, you're quite right. I mean, I love Fulham, but this is turning into a grind now. And I feel the fans. I mean, obviously some of them still want Europe. Everyone would like to qualify for Europe, but you can't look at it in isolation, because this squad as it is, and again, Ash, I'm not trying to preempt what we're going to do when we do a show about the transfer window, but we could be in a position to have to sign 10 players, Ash, just to stand still.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind the age of the squad and people on expiring contracts. Now, you throw that into the mix, along with a European campaign, And you have to say, with a squad as small as ours, we could potentially find ourselves in a relegation fight next year. So it's very difficult to talk about Europe in isolation because the ramifications of it are huge. But getting back to your original point about the end of the season, yeah, quite frankly, I'm finding it difficult. I'm finding it difficult, especially when we're talking about the same old problems. I mean, we've got fans now, talking about how awful Iwobi is, or this. Iwobi's not awful. Iwobi was our catalyst for the first half of the season, but as you've said, played too much football. ESR's got massive confidence issues. Pereira, I mean, his 24/7 agent was touting him around again a couple of weeks ago. And like I said at the beginning, I think one way to re-engage with the fans is to play the kids, but Marco's not going to do that, and it's going to be interesting because going forward, if Marco stays, at some point you're going to have to wonder. And while the fans are very keen for Marco to be backed, Marco himself is going to have to show growth and development if he wants to go from a top half of the table manager into a manager that's competing for Europe and in Europe. Because at this moment in time, while I appreciate his principles, I do wonder how flexible he's going to be. I mean, you look at the size of the squad. I mean, look, Ash and Mozza, you'll know this, how much we struggled with a cup run in the FA Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, we were only fighting on two fronts there, league and cup. Imagine trying to do that starting next season, league, European Cup, FA Cup, League Cup. We're going to be dead on our feet by December. So yeah, I obviously I'm a season ticket holder. Obviously I'm going on Saturday, but I just want something. I just want something to enjoy, because like a lot of fans, there's nothing worse than going to football. You've been looking forward to it all week, and then just coming away, just feeling either disappointed or, worst of all, either angry or apathetic. And I'm wondering if that's where the fan base is going to end up after Saturday. Because if we don't get the result we need on Saturday, then I can see a lot of people phoning it in for the rest of the season, just wanting it to be over. I really can. It's a shame because it's been a season of some real highs, but when it comes to the business end where we are now, we just seem to have run completely out of steam, and I don't know any Fulham fan that thinks otherwise.
Yes, it is a real concern. I think, this whole potentially having to sign 10 players to be where we already are is frightening for me, because there's one thing that Fulham aren't, and that's proactive, and we're never ever quick at the transfer window. And we had that season years ago when we spent £100 million and people mocked us for it, but a lot of people didn't sort of realize that we started pre-season. In fact, with the first week of pre-season that year, we had 14 first team registered players, and 4 of them were goalkeepers. We couldn't even field a team in a pre-season friendly without playing a goalkeeper out on pitch. Like that would have been, that's a concern. That's a worry for me. The other worry, obviously, is that you have to be completely blind and oblivious to the constant rumor and connections that Marco Silva's getting to other Premier League jobs around the world. And you have to go, we had this discussion on Monday where, I said it, and I'll keep saying it, that I don't think Marco Silva's taken Fulham as far as Marco Silva can take Fulham. I think he's taken this squad as far as he can take this squad. And whether he looks at that as an excuse to go, you know what, maybe now is time to cut ties, because I don't believe I'm going to get the back in to bring in 15 players to step up a level. And history would dictate that he wouldn't be wrong in thinking that, with the people that we have above him to make those decisions. my biggest concern is we've been saying it for months and months and months, is that Marco Silva is Fulham's biggest asset by a country mile. The problem is I have absolutely no faith and trust in the people above him. So, if he chose to cut ties now, I wouldn't be too shocked. If we go into the beginning of this summer needing a new manager, a new coaching system, and 10 players to be scratching our nose, next year is going to be painful. And it's going to be very, very hard to get through this summer without having a complete meltdown before next season even starts. And it is, I don't know if that sort of sitting on my shoulders and knowing that that's coming is a concern or not, or it's just a case of, you know what, some fans are taking it really well. They're going, we should be taking it as a compliment that Marco's getting mentioned in other teams' jobs. He's doing a great job for Fulham, but I'm concerned. And we'll come back and we'll talk about that. Obviously, when the season's over and we do our review and we look at look into next season, we know exactly where we are in terms of what type of squad we're going to need to go into next season. We can worry about it then, but it is sitting pretty heavy at the moment, and I think that's also adding to how much I'm not enjoying this current state that Fulham are in, because I have very little faith in the hierarchy at Fulham keeping the fight up and keeping it going. And it is a real concern. Look, let's finish this pod how we always do. Player to watch from both teams and a scoreline prediction for Saturday.
We haven't talked about the game at all.
I know we haven't, and there's a reason for that. And I'm gonna do most of my talking in mine. I'm gonna start this week actually with players to watch, because I want to talk about a few things within the game. For me, I'm going to start with Fulham. Players to watch for me is going to be Bernd Leno. Again, I said it last week. I was really unhappy with the goal that we conceded last week from Yuri Tillemans. Not only because he's 5'6" and had like 6 yards of space in the box and defending for it was rubbish, but I also was really unimpressed with Leno and his save. I thought he was a bit weak wrist, and I love Leno. He's probably the best goalkeeper we've had since Mark Schwarzer, but he gets beaten too many times from positions where he should be saving easy shots. So for me, he's a watch for that. The rest of the squad's looking a bit thin, and that worries me massively too. Ryan Sessegnon is naturally going to be a player to watch. I want to see a reaction. We all saw it on Saturday. Obviously, we were at the game of Villa Park, and he walked right in front of us. He looked so annoyed after being subbed off. I want to see a reaction from him because of that. Because he's one of the only players who you genuinely know is playing with his heart on his sleeve every single week, and he is properly fighting for the shirt because he believes in it. Not saying the others aren't. You just know that if there's one player that's going to run through the fire, it's going to be him. The other player to watch for me this week is actually probably going to be Raul. I think Raul Jimenez has had 3 or 4 really, really good games for Fulham the last couple of weeks. It's just a shame that everyone around him sort of let that down. He's been on Saturday. He was doing so much work covering Iwobi's lack of tracking back and winning all the balls on the halfway line, and then it's almost to the detriment of his work rate that we then had nobody up front to then make advantage of that happening. That I feel like we're going to have to correct that. So they're 3 key positions for me that for Fulham are going to have to make sure that that we're strong in, because the last couple of weeks they have been not playing badly, but just sort of where we need to make sure that we stay strong, especially with the way that Everton play football, especially under David Moyes, because we know the type of football that David Moyes likes to play. He's never been known for his all-out attacking football, and because of that, looking at the Everton squad, Jordan Pickford, if I'm going to go with Leno, has to be someone we have to look out for. He is a goalkeeper who, on his day, can be absolutely outstanding and world class, and happy that he's an England goalkeeper. And then he has days where he's absolutely, rubbish. And those games never happen against Fulham. We all know that. So that is all that is. You then, you have to worry about some of the attacking play that they do have. They have a couple of really good players going forward. Everton. You look at Beto, who's a decent player. I'm actually quite worried about Broja coming on off the bench on Saturday because he was absolutely lambasted at Fulham last year because he did absolutely nothing on loan for Chelsea, and it would just be typical of someone like that to come on and score like an 85th minute winner after we've spent 85 minutes, getting to the edge of the box and then passing back to Leno, then get to the edge of the box and passing back to Leno, and they've done nothing. And that'll just be typical Fulham of late. So they're my players to watch for the game. Scoreline prediction wise, this game on Saturday is either going to be 3-0 Fulham or 1-0 Everton. I don't see there being an in between. I genuinely do believe that if we can score, if we score a couple, we'll score 3. But I don't have the faith that we also then will have one of those games where we do all the hard work, we do all the huffing and puffing, and just can't blow a house down, and it is going to be one of those things. Mozza, I'll come to you next, mate. Give us your players to watch and your scoreline prediction for the game on Saturday.
You've named most of the ones I was going to anyway. For us, Jimenez, exact same reasons you mentioned. He has had a really good work rate, and even when we saw him at Villa last weekend, there were moments, I think I even said out loud once, he's screaming for it, and he was. He had his arms up like that when he was open, and no one, for whatever reason, would square the ball to him, and he's in need of goals. Yeah, interesting one. Other one I'd mention for us would be Harry Wilson. For similar reasons, I know he's only just sort of recently come back, but I think, last week there was a sitter he could have put away, which is sort of a bit out of character for him, but appreciate he's not been back long, as I say. But I really expect him to bring back the magic that he had before he was injured. As for Everton, yeah, I think the attack of Beto is the main concern, and for the same reason, I'm Anna Broja. Did he even score for us in his short tenure that he had at Fulham? I can't even remember. He might have got one.
Who's that?
Wasn't it Broja?
Amanda Broja. I'm not gonna lie to you, mate. I don't even remember him having a shot on target, let alone scoring a goal.
Yeah, but... I mean, yeah. Well, whatever. There you go. If it was anything significant, I suppose we would know. But I can see that happening as well, Ash. And 85th minute, 1-0 Everton is my scoreline prediction, and I think it will be Broja to score it. Classic Fulham.
Yeah.
So there we go. Really super positive from me this week.
Yeah, it is a real concern. I think I do sort of similarly have those fears in the back of my mind. But I think it's just because I'm feeling really negative at the moment. Drew, what about you, mate? Give us your players to watch and your scoreline prediction, please.
Not so much a player to watch, a position to watch. With Timmy Chestnut's now done for the season, I do wonder what's going to happen when Kenny Tete gets to 70 minutes. Because Silva's been bringing him off. And I just don't know who we're going to bring on. For Fulham, player to watch, I'll say Callum Osman, simply just because I want to see a kid. One of our youth boys playing. I'd love him to get on the field. And I'll be really intrigued about how he reacts. For Everton, I've got a sneaky feeling that Dwight McNeil might cause us problems because he seems to play well against us, and he's coming back into the team this week. And he can play anywhere across the front. The other player that I quite like for Everton is Gana Gay. Is it is it Gay?
Idrissa Gana Gay, yeah.
Yeah, I do like him.
Yeah.
Powerful. I mean, on a box-to-box midfielder. And obviously the jewel in their defensive crown is Jared Braithwaite, who has pretty much been linked to every Champions League side going. Score predictions. Amongst the top 11 teams, Fulham have scored the fewest goals. So with greatest respect, Ash, I don't see where we're going to get 3 goals from. I really don't. I appreciate Tarkowski's out, but unless Everton make some real horrific mistakes at the back, which they're not prone to do being a Moyes team, I think it's going to be a bit drab. And it might be decided by the odd goal. It's gonna. Yeah, I can't see any more than 3 goals in the game. It's more likely to be a 1-0 either way. Couldn't tell you. Everton haven't got a lot of firepower. We haven't got a lot of energy, and we've got one fit striker who's 34 years old. So, if you're hoping for a goal fest at Craven Cottage, I think you're going to be bitterly disappointed.
If you're hoping for a goal fest at Craven Cottage, you'll be watching the games going over at Barnes Common over the river. You won't be watching them at Craven Cottage, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, this season's really petered out. There's a lot of energy clearly out of our squad at the moment. There's a lot of statuses and players up in the air. There's a lot of players that, we don't necessarily know if they're playing for new contracts, if they're just winding down the ones they currently have. We don't know the situation with Marco. We know that what we do know is that it's likely, no matter what happens with Marco this summer, that Stuart Gray is going to be retiring at the end of the season. That he's a big man in the background at Fulham because he was obviously there before Marco came in, and he is a popular member of that sort of squad and the coaching staff. There's a lot of up in the airs at the moment, and Kenny Tete, as you say, Drew, after 70 minutes is a real concern for me. The fact that Fulham gambled and lost a substitution just to make that sub on Saturday against Villa when we were still chasing the game says an awful lot about the energy that he has at the moment, which does concern me going forward. Especially because, Timmy Chestnuts isn't going to be no more for the rest of the season, and I just don't think there's even any youth players in that position that are good enough to make that step up. It's going to be an interesting one. I know that we do usually try to be quite positive. We do try to at least look at some positive marks, but I don't know what it is at the moment. I don't know if it's the season sort of slightly whimpering out, the fact that we've gone from being real European contenders in the last 6 games to winning 1 out of 6 and looking really, really poor. I don't know what it is, but optimism is a real low for me at the moment. And I'm hoping that on Saturday, the players on the pitch can do something to put that right. And at least, maybe not for the Man City home game, last game of the season, but at least for that Brentford away game, have something for the fans to be there actually pushing them towards. Because if we lose on Saturday, that Brentford away game could be a real nail in the coffin to not just our season, but an awful lot of confidences and an awful lot of players' Fulham careers. And I think that needs to be noted and said. Other than that, lads, there's not really much else that we can talk about really for this one, other than hope that we see some sort of reaction from Saturday. Said for the 38th episode in a row, we'll keep hoping that the consistent Fulham do actually carry on doing that on Saturday, and we see something. Other than that, lads, have a good weekend. Hope you do enjoy the game. I think all 3 of us are at the game this weekend, aren't we? So, hopefully we see something and have some joy in it. If you are going to the game on Saturday, safe travel, obviously. Hope you enjoy it. Hopefully Fulham can pull something out of the bag. And then we can be positive somewhat in our review on Monday night when we come to review it. Other than that, there's not really much to say other than come on, you whites, and have a good weekend.